Welcome to this explainer for thoughtless delineation. You know, there's a phrase you see all the time in adoption announcements, their little one. It sounds sweet, right? But today we're unpacking a truly fascinating forensic analysis from a recent essay that completely flips how we look at phrases like that. We're exploring how the adoption industry rarely lies to us in the conventional sense. Instead, it relies on something way more durable, the architecture of grammar. It literally uses language to position, to hide, and to erase. So let's break down exactly how this linguistic machinery operates right out in the open. To see this in action, take a close look at this real social media post from an adoption agency. Just pay attention to the grammatical structure itself. Count the clauses. The adopting family, they're the subject. They are the ones doing the matching. Meanwhile, the expectant mother, a pregnant woman who hasn't even given birth yet, let alone made any final legal decisions, is completely subordinated. She's reduced to mere context. She's literally just the biological condition making someone else's milestone possible. And this brilliantly illustrates our hook. By just the third sentence of that exact same post, the mother vanishes entirely, and she's replaced by the phrase, their little one. The unborn child is casually, confidently claimed as property. It's completely unremarkable to anyone reading it, right? Unless you know what to look for. And honestly, that is precisely the point. The grammar of erasure doesn't announce itself. This brings us to the first of 6 linguistic mechanisms doing the system's heavy lifting. We call it the possessive claim. Long before a child is even born, before any first parent has consented, and way before the law is ever involved, possession is established in the public grammar. The adoptive family is suddenly the subject of the sentence, and the child? They're the object. The first parent has already been subordinated in language, which totally forecloses any question of what the child was before that possession. Now, that possessive claim naturally builds right into our second mechanism. This text comes from another real agency post, celebrating a match and exclaiming it happened after only their 4th profile submission. Just look at that exclamation mark. It completely frames the adoption process as a consumer journey. So the crucial point here is that this is a conversion metric. In sales, a conversion is that magic moment a prospect becomes a customer. By taking pipeline language and applying it to human placement, the institution normalizes a transaction. The child literally becomes the conversion event. And in doing so, it totally erases the profound emotional cost to the first parents. It frames the only relevant struggle as the prospective adopter's paperwork journey. And this framing actually scales all the way up to the government level in our third mechanism, the neutral ratio. Take an initiative like A Home for Every Child, which offered $7 million in bonus awards to states with the best and most improved home-to-child foster ratios. Now, mathematics appears neutral, right? But let's look a little closer at the math. A ratio can improve in 2 very different ways. You can either recruit more homes, or you can remove more children and put them into care. The bonus structure? It doesn't distinguish between the two. What goes entirely unmentioned is that the seemingly neutral math can actually improve through systemic family separation. This metric is structurally catastrophic for Indigenous children, whose communities have faced mass removal. Yet the initiative's expansion contains 0 mention of the Indian Child Welfare Act. It's a stark reminder, when children become a metric, the metric becomes the child. Moving on, we find partisan advocacy masquerading as neutral policy analysis in our 4th mechanism, the unmarked source. The essay highlights posts celebrating the elimination of child welfare regulations, and they cite reports from the Manhattan Institute and the Daily Signal as if they were just neutral informational bodies. But by leaving the source bias unnamed, the advocacy basically functions as analysis. For instance, the Manhattan Institute coined the term regulatory dark matter to make critical child welfare guidelines sound like bureaucratic waste. When vital requirements, things like trauma-informed care and keeping siblings together through kinship placement, are labeled outdated and eliminated, well, this language makes structural violence legible as a bureaucratic improvement. Naming the source isn't just a minor detail, it is the entire argument. Okay, mechanism 5 looks at enforcement optics. We have a post from an operation boasting that 87% of Mississippi's missing foster children were located in 48 hours. It presents this as an absolute, unambiguous success. But the essay asks us to really look at the vocabulary being deployed here. The difference between located and safe is absolutely profound. Foster children don't predominantly go missing because of external trafficking. They run from placements where they are being harmed or unsupported. Saying they were located merely returns a running child to the structurally coercive system that produced the crisis in the first place. It celebrates managing a symptom, while entirely avoiding accountability for the root cause. Our final mechanism scales this all the way up to the international level. We're looking at political responses to historic, coerced relinquishment. This is the exact same machinery, just operating on a massive scale. Hundreds of thousands of women were separated from their babies. Yet government responses rely heavily on passive voice apologies and bureaucratic clocks, like giving a strict 45-day window to respond to a petition. These linguistic tactics are deployed to acknowledge a proximity to the truth while carefully not actually touching it. It makes institutional accountability look like institutional conscience, which keeps the system perfectly intact while materially repairing absolutely nothing. So what allows all 6 of these mechanisms to operate without anyone really noticing? The essay introduces a really key concept here: non-adoptee bias. This is the cultural condition making this grammar invisible. When the subject position is always the adoptive family or the agency and never the first parent or the child, the reader just absorbs the frame without realizing it. There's no obvious villain in the room, just a deeply embedded assumption making institutional interests look like humanitarian ones. And this all builds into what the author terms the architecture of silence. It isn't just one institution sealing a record in a dark room. It's totally distributed. It's the cumulative weight of thousands of press releases, social media posts, and reports making the exact same grammatical choices every single day. Collectively, they structurally omit the lived experiences of adopted people and their first parents. So how do we dismantle this? The explainer points to the absolute necessity of honest adoption language. We have to read carefully. We have to ask, who is the subject? Who is relegated to the subordinate clause? What has been completely left out of the announcement? It means utilizing terms like first parents rather than just adopting the industry's positioning and actually naming the structural realities of the adoption machine. Because here's the thing, the counter to this erasure is not outrage. Outrage is easily absorbed and dismissed by the grammar of erasure. The true counter is precision. It is the persistent, low, certain precision of naming what is actually there. It's that subsonic hum of truth that simply cannot be sealed or suppressed by a grammatical trick. To explore this forensic breakdown further and really support this vital analysis, you've got to head over to thoughtlessdel.substack.com to read the full essay. Because a system cannot seal a truth that keeps being spoken. So ask yourself, what hidden assumptions have you absorbed from the sentences you read every day without a second thought?